So let's go now to my macroscope so we can actually see what it looks like. So what you see here are energy pulses connecting the selected country, in this case the United States, to all the other countries where 10% of the mentions of one of those countries are shared with the other country. So what that means is, let's go here for a moment and let's pick a country like, say, Estonia. So if we click on Estonia, what it's doing now is it's saying every article in the first 6 months of last year that mentioned Estonia, what are all the other countries that were also mentioned in those articles? And red outgoing means that more than 10% of the articles that mentioned Estonia also mention these other countries. Blue means that more than 10% of that country's, of articles mentioning that country mentioned Estonia. So it's kind of giving you kind of a give and take. And here, of course, you can see that, Estonia is most tightly connected with Europe, and that makes a lot of sense. And what you're seeing here, the size of the dots and the volume of them coming out shows you the strength of those connections. So actually, if we kind of come out here and we kind of look at this at an angle, you can see, of course, it's most tightly connected to Eastern Europe. So in the case of Estonia, it's very tightly connected to the other Baltic nations, very tightly connected to most of Europe, and of course, Russia. But now you see this time slider down here. This time slider lets us pick what particular week we're interested in. So if we move this time slider all the way back here, you'll notice now in the first week, the week of February 22nd, we'll notice there's this long arc down to Argentina. And you might say, well, that's kind of odd. Why is Estonia so tightly connected to Argentina in that week? And you'll notice if we move forward, it disappears. It was just really for that single week. Well, this is the case where in that particular week, Estonia and Argentina both had films that were nominated for the Foreign Film Academy Award. So, for example, if you're just looking at all the covers that mentioned Estonia that week, it wouldn't leap out at you that there's a connection back to Argentina. But a visualization like this, it just really leaps out. You can really see the connection. And of course, you can see these arcs that go to the other side of the world. You can see, of course, a very strong connection with the U.S., with Mexico. Now let's look for a moment at, say, France. Now we'll notice France has a huge interconnection with Africa. Of course, very strong colonial ties there. If we zoom in, say, to Portugal here, we can also see, you'll notice this very strong ties from Portugal to a set of countries that also are many of the former colonial ties. So you can see again, and you'll notice that it's Portugal, it's mostly the colonial countries. It's more of their coverage, as I mentioned, with Portugal. Portugal, in turn, is more tightly interconnected with Europe. So again, we can start seeing these really fascinating connections across the world. We can really see, and of course, pick a country like Mongolia, pick a country like China, of course, is very tightly connected around the world. You can see, obviously, sort of the world superpowers. We connect certain countries. Now, South Africa has more connections around the world. Congo, of course, we can see tends to be to a small set of countries. Somalia, we can see it's a very distinct profile. Now, some of this as well, with Somalia, some of this is neighboring countries that are related to it. Some of our countries that have contributed troops or peace builders there. Some of that, of course, is Somalia has a number of refugees that are coming out. So some of this is you're catching refugee traffic that's coming through. We picture something like Germany, of course, Spain, and actually if I go back to Portugal, so something else you might notice about Portugal, if we kind of look at an angle, you'll notice an incredibly strong connection between Portugal and Spain. So again, that's reflecting the fact that obviously there's a lot of discussion that connects those two. And so again, it's a really very powerful tool because we can take a country, take for example, let's take France here for a minute. Actually, let's use Somalia again. So let's take Somalia and let's see how stable are those connections. So as I move this time slider back, and we look, week over week, we can see that some of those connections are fairly stable, but there is some change. Week over week, we'll notice there are some interesting changes that occurred here. And again, this is the powerful thing, is to kind of look at world history as it moves over time and space. And so again, it's a very powerful way to kind of look contextualize of, again, how is the world contextualizing the world? And of course, the United States, being the superpower that it is, of course, it's pretty much connected to the entire planet. And look at a country like Brazil or Colombia, or Bolivia. Again, it's a very, it's very addictive actually to sort of click on countries and say, what am I seeing here? What's this particular country most connected to? And you can see, what countries are very regional, and so you can really start seeing these fascinating connections. It's very addictive to just sort of fly around the world and say, well, what about this country? Or what about this country? Or what about this week? And again, it really shows you those connections that you don't normally think about.